Alright, beautiful people, this is Mrs. M, and I've got your flip lesson today on conditional and subjunctive mood. Last time we talked about three different kinds of moods when you're talking about verbs. Remember, you have verb tense, which indicates time, and then you have verb moods, which indicates the reality of it. We have indicative, right here, indicative, and that is your declarative statement, your declarative sentence. The dog was lazy. Right? That's a statement. Alright, some of you got confused on that last time and you confused indicative and imperative. Just remember, imperative, you've learned this since third grade, where you've got declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory sentences, types of sentences. Same kind of thing here, but we're looking at the mood now, so the reality of it. Indicative is just declarative. Interrogative is your question. Is the dog lazy? And make sure you have a question mark at the end. And then you have imperative, and this is your command. So if I said, shut the door, open the window, close the book, those are all imperative. That's command. It's imperative that you do that. It's a command. So that's a quick review on the three that we talked about last time. So let's move on to the next two. The next two are conditional and subjunctive moods. Conditional mood. Conditional mood indicates that the conditional state will cause something else to happen. The light bulb might explode if I jiggle that switch. So if I jiggle that switch is the condition, right? The light bulb's not going to explode by itself, but it might explode if I jiggle that switch. So that's your condition right here. The light bulb could explode if you jiggle that switch. Same thing, but notice I've just changed this word from might to could. Those are conditional kind of words. So might, could, would. Let's look at some more examples. If it wasn't raining, we would go for a walk. Well, if it wasn't raining, we would go for a walk. So if this wasn't happening, this is our condition, we would go for a walk. If I had been late again, or if he had been late again, I would have fired him. Again, this is my condition. When my uncle visited us, he would always help me with my homework. So when this happened, so this is my condition, he would always help me with my homework. If everyone were to work faster, we would finish in time. Here's your condition. Alright, so this has to happen in order for the other thing to happen. Or it could happen if this other thing happened. Didn't necessarily mean that's going to happen, but it's a condition. Alright, my professor told me I could do much better if I worked harder. Well, if I worked harder, that is my condition. Notice that a lot of times, or in all of these, I made sure I use could or would in there. Notice also that all of these things could possibly happen if I were to do the other thing. So, conditional, let's say for our purposes, it could possibly happen, right? Let's just, for our purposes, for this lesson, let's just say that it could possibly happen. You are going to learn later on that may be different or change, but for right now, conditional mood, it could possibly happen if something else happens. So let's move to subjunctive mood. Subjunctive mood indicates a hypothetical state or a state contrary to reality, such as a wish, a desire, or an imaginary situation. By far the most common use of the subjunctive is the use of subjunctive after if clauses that state or describe a hypothetical situation. We used if clauses in the conditional. This is where it gets kind of messy, but remember, conditional, it could happen if something else happens, right? So in this one, subjunctive, we're looking for wishes, desires, imaginary situations. It's hypothetical. Alright, so still going to be using the if, but now it's going to be whether or not this really could happen. So, subjunctive. If I were a butterfly, I would have wings. Right? If I were a butterfly, there's no way I am going to be a butterfly. I am not going to wake up tomorrow morning and be a butterfly. This is subjunctive. Okay, so if I were a butterfly, I would have wings. Note that in the indicative, remember that's the declarative, right? Declarative. I would write I was. For instance, when I was a young boy, I liked to swim. However, to indicate the subjunctive, I would write I were. Normally you don't speak like that. You say I was, but here in subjunctive you would say I were. The subjunctive indicates a statement contrary to fact. In the butterfly example, I am not really a butterfly, but I'm describing a hypothetical situation that might occur if I were one. So the indicative, when I was a butterfly in a former life, I had wings. If I were a butterfly, I would have wings. I had wings. Let's look at some other examples of subjunctive mode. There was a man in there who knew exactly what he wanted, and I found myself wishing I were as lucky as he. I found myself wishing I were as lucky as he. Notice I've got the I were, and I'm wishing. And there was a man in there. I found myself, I wish I were as lucky as he was. Both bones were porous, as if the virus or causative organism were consuming them, as if, okay, again, hypothetical situation, and it's were. The virus is not eating them. It's just describing why the bones were porous. What if I granted you a kingdom? Hey, is that really going to happen? No. Okay, but what if I granted you a kingdom? That's a wish. It's a hypothetical. Don't look at me as if I were crazy. Okay, as if I were crazy. Notice again the I were. There's your clue right there that that's going to be subjunctive. I wish I didn't love you so much. Again, an I wish. Right there, I wish. If you were really great and powerful, you'd keep your promises. That's from the Wizard of Oz. Okay, so if you were, it's not really happening. Okay, if he was really great and if he were really great and powerful, and we know that Oz was not. All right, and here is a very famous one. I wish I were an Oscar Mayer Wiener. That is what I'd really like to be. Because if I were an Oscar Mayer Wiener, everyone would be in love with me. All right, there's you a famous example of subjunctive. I wish I were, because if I were, and I know that you all want to see that commercial in the original form, so here we go.
And complete meat protein, mildly seasoned to bring out all the good meat flavor.
Everyone would be in love with me. Next week, you handle just the refreshments, Freddie.
All right, so there is a very famous advertisement using the subjunctive mood. Remember, conditional, you have the if, but you have a could or would or might or may. And those are all going to be, they could happen. They may not happen, but they could happen. Subjunctive, we're going to use that for the impossibility. Okay, you're not going to be a hot dog, people. As much as you think you might be, you're never going to be a hot dog. All right, so if you were, then that would be subjunctive. All right. We are going to attempt the quick quiz now. You can use the video as you take the quiz, and I'm also going to send you the same video, the same PDF, the PowerPoint that I used in this video, as a PDF file if you want just the examples instead. So make sure you use that to take the quick quiz. Good luck.